Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Eileen Fisher's Women Together. My name is Antoinette, and I am your host of our Women Together session today. And I'm really glad to be with everyone and just to have the opportunity to be together again is always wonderful. And this community has become a big part of my way of moving through the global pandemic, but also way of staying connected to so many of us who are coming in from different parts of the country and around the world. So what I'd love to do is just, we've already got some people saying hello and where they're coming from. Lisa is sharing in the chat that it's a beautiful day in New York City. So perhaps we can just share in the chat at the bottom of the screen. It pops up on the right if you're on Zoom, or in the comments on YouTube, just where you're coming from and what's up for you today. We often talk about the weather. It's a great place to start, even though we go a lot deeper than the weather. But it is something that, as we've experienced varying shifts in the weather, we had snow last week, and now I'm here in Cortland Manor, New York, and just connecting into place and recognizing this place was first inhabited by the Lenape people, and the Hudson River I can feel it quite close by for me. So just connecting into where we are and where we are in place. I know that many of us have connected with nature and our relationship with nature over the last weeks and months. So this has been a place for us to just be able to reconnect with each other as well. So I'll read some of them out. We have some of our regulars and maybe some new people with us. I know that at the very beginning, it's kind of, we all just sort of log into Zoom one after the other. And I kind of imagine as if we're all kind of coming into a space together, coming into a circle together. And each person's just walking in and putting their stuff down and gathering here. So I just have that little picture in my mind. That said, we are still in our places. So we've got Linda in Lake Tahoe, Jean from New York City, Donald, West Virginia, Dana, sunny Central Florida, Patricia on the cool gray Maine coast, Bianca from Columbus, Ohio, good to see you. Many of us have seen each other week after week and have been holding each other in our thoughts and in all the things that we've been each going through. So Jackie is enjoying the blooms in Ossining, Elaine, West Nyack, New York, Susan, bright and sunny in Bethesda, Maryland. Lisa, talking about a beautiful day makes me feel better. I'm starting to see friends in person again, and it makes me smile. So I love that. And I did get a chance to see my mom and spend some time with her. So I feel that, the breaking open after this very long winter as well, and the various ways that we're getting to do that. Lisa in suburban Philly, Eileen, Laurel Canyon in LA, Marcia, Lake Oswego, Linda in Connecticut, Delray Beach, Florida, Philadelphia, Norfolk, wonderful. Gigliola in Lake Como in Italy. Wonderful. Glad to have you with us. Jay June in Vancouver, BC. Beautiful sunny day. So we have a wonderful group of connection here. And really what we've done with this weekly gathering is just to give us a place to connect with each other and connect back in with ourselves. And as many of you already know, this stems from Eileen Fisher's Eileen Fisher's really personal desire. She's been a clothing designer for over 35 years, but while that clothing has allowed us to feel comfortable and confident in who we are as women, she wanted to share some of the practices that allowed her to go deeper with that. And really, there is a magic, and I think many of us have felt it, and we keep coming back for it. The magic of what happens when women come together and when we share with each other. So we use this time to share some practices and turn to one another. I find that it really allows me to tap into the openness in myself. And often we stay in the places where we're kind of rigid and stuck, and it feels like this is how I think, and this is what I know, and this is what it is. And in this hour, we get to soften a little bit of that and kind of feel into the kind of permeable nature of our boundaries of who we are and what we have believed to be. So, um, yeah, so I think that's what we're doing with this time and just connecting into the freedom of being human and what lives in that. And also the messy parts of being human, because there's many of those too. So wonderful to be together and to be reconnecting. Today, we will focus on releasing judgment, and there's so much that goes with that. But I will just start us off with a tiny practice. So, the tiny practice is just a few different things that you can do throughout your day at any point to just come back to yourself. And this is one that we do at the beginning of Eileen Fisher meetings. And if you know, you know, I'm looking for the little chime that we use. So, or it's a singing bowl. But what we'd like to do is just offer you a moment of stillness. And so a moment of just reconnecting with place in this body, on this Mother Earth body, just being here for a moment. So I'll invite you into that just by perhaps feeling your feet on the ground and then feeling the breath moving in and out. You can close your eyes or lower your gaze if that's comfortable for you. And I'll ring the sound of the bell or the bowl to begin our moment of stillness and just being with the breath for a moment, just being here on this seat in this place, connected through the stillness. When you're ready to return to the screen in this form of connection, sometimes I feel more connected in the moment of stillness than when I'm connected to the screen. So just recognizing that we have different ways of connecting. And I'd love to just hear from whoever wants to share in the chat, what brought you here today? And sometimes that is, quite clear and maybe even surface level of, I came because I came last week and I wanted to come back again, and that's great. And if there's some relation to the topic of releasing judgment and what that might mean for you, you can share that here. So what brought you here around the topic of releasing judgment? Bianca, we've missed you too. She says she's missed us all so much. It's good to be here for pure sisterhood. Wonderful. Shari, because I always feel better whenever I join you in this great group of women. Darla, putting myself out there, connection, releasing judgment of self. Linda, um, I went right into judgment in the meditation. It's right there for a lot of us. Lisa, releasing judgment. I'm a life coach and always working on that with my clients. Jerry, my kids visited from Maryland. I'm coming out of a whirlwind. A lot of different areas that we see judgment. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Jerry. Lorraine, welcome. For the first time, judgment and criticism are things that you're working on. Wonderful. Also, compassion. Diane, I've been in harsh judgment of my stay during the pandemic, so I'd like to release judgment of myself. Beautiful. Patricia, I come because it is my time to be in pure, caring space, no obligation. And that's actually where I went in my little meditation, just pure caring for this wonderful group of women. And I love to keep it on the gallery view because I get to see all of your faces, or many of them, and I really love that. So Sandy, enjoy all these non-judgmental women. Samantha, always good to deepen the connection, or deepen connection to releasing judgment, especially now. Wonderful. So we'll have a little bit of discussion about this topic, and we'll do another tiny practice or two, and then we'll turn into our small groups if you're in Zoom, and we'll be able to share with each other what came up and what we perhaps have been thinking about, or just what's coming up for us. And that is really such magic time to be able to move into breakouts together. It always, I love being able to just connect with new people and to hear one another and really get and give the gift of listening. So I wanted to share a little bit of my thoughts around releasing judgment, and perhaps that brings up some thoughts for each of you. So we'll use it as a little spark, like flint for the fire. So some of, or can maybe kindling, who knows? But I was thinking a lot about this topic of judgment, and actually, I did this personal growth and development course when I was maybe 19, and when I did it, I came back from that course and I just remember this feeling of banished judgment. I just felt like I have to banish judgment from my life. And I painted it. I went to like an art barn or something, and I painted it in this big gold letters, and I put it up in my dorm room in college. And I just felt like, well, that'll do it. It didn't. but I clearly had that goal and desire. And I think there's something about this idea of like, I'm just going to let go of judgment. It's just going to be gone. I'm going to banish it from my life. And yet, there's a reason that it's there. There's good judgment, right? And I remember my mother's voice saying, use good judgment. Lisa's just saying we need judgment to keep us safe. And then Lisa B is saying the idea is awareness, and that is key. And I think these are, really important points about judgment, that there are ways that it can be useful in our lives, and that it probably has been created in us to help us. And there are definitely different places where it's useful more often than not, and there are places where it's not so useful. So I was thinking about the places where it may not feel so useful, and it's easier, I find, to start with thinking about when I'm judging other people or other situations. When I think about how I'm judging myself, it gets a little tricky. So I'm going to use this as a way in. I think a lot about what is actually happening for me when I'm judging others. So I might think, oh, and I have this thing, right? I think, oh, she's so self-absorbed. I was thinking about what's the one that I want to focus on, because there are a lot of ways that I judge my partner, I judge, whoever, and I can get very critical if you let me, right? But I think, oh, she's so self-absorbed. And then I think, okay, what's actually underneath that? What's really going on for me when I'm pointing the finger out there? What's really going on for me? And what I realize for me is that there's a part of me that I'm judging when I'm judging that other person, that it's easier for me to look out there. And often it's easier to look out there and put it out there than it is for me to own it, and for me to hold myself accountable for my own judgment. And what I realized for myself is that I'm actually pushing out the part of me that wants to be prioritized. So I'm pushing out the part of me that wants to be absorbed in myself. And for whatever reason, I learned that being self-absorbed was bad. And so I was like, okay, being self-absorbed is bad, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, be part of that. And so I put that as such a bad thing in myself that I forget to prioritize myself. So I've been judging other people, and I've been judging myself. So often, if I'm projecting it out there, there's actually a reflection of it in me. And so I look at, well, what's actually the part of myself that I'm pushing down or pushing away. And there are many people who explore shadow work, and we've worked with a number of them. And I was looking at one woman who I respect her work, Ashley Neese, and she said the more repressed our shadow aspects are, the more we judge others who seem to freely exhibit them. The more repressed our shadow aspects are, the more we judge others who seem to freely exhibit them. I love this. Ansley said, imagine painting "Own It" to hang on the dorm room wall. So what if I actually switched it around, banished judgment to own it? I love that, because it's actually the part of ourselves that we are being critical of, and the part of ourselves that we're being so, um, like we're annoyed with ourselves, that we push onto other people. So I can share more about shadow work and resources, because I see some questions coming up in the chat about that. Risa just said shame and judgment are tied together in this process. And Charlene just shared pointing one finger at someone else causes 3 fingers to be pointed at yourself. Yeah, Bianca's holding up the viewpoint of that. When I push this finger out at you, there are 3 fingers that are actually pointing back at me. So there's so much in this, and there's so much richness in this, because it's a duality, that the people that I are judging are actually some of my greatest teachers. So I may be, really frustrated with them or judging them even in passing. And actually, I might have something really strong that I can learn from that judgment. Maybe I learn to prioritize myself a bit more, or I learn to have structure or boundaries or things that I might be judging someone else for having. And thank you, B. It's Ashley Neese, is the person that I quoted. There's her name. And yeah, Ellen says the Buddhist concept is that the one that angers you or annoys you is actually your spirit guide that is sent to teach you something. Agree. Yeah. So wonderful. So I thought we could, just with that little thought, there's so much more we could go into about judgment, but I thought that's a big one to sit with. And actually, one of our favorite teachers, Byron Katie, she has on her site, actually, it's called thework.com, and it's by, I can send some of those resources out too, but she said, so, and my apologies, I have allergies today, so I keep sniffling, but I'm okay, don't worry. But Byron Katie's work is called The Work, and quite simple. And she has a judge your neighbor worksheet. And she starts by, and you can download the worksheet, you can do it right there. And she starts by just asking you to put that sentence down. So whatever it is, so for me, it was, she is so self-absorbed. And then she invites us to go into a process of inquiry around that sentence. So is that really true? Can I really be sure that that's true? Who would I be without the thought of that? She's so self-absorbed. And just that process of inquiry starts to slow us down, and gets, at least for me, gets me into a place of really just curiosity, and maybe a little bit of courage around, maybe I can look at that. And then she invites us to turn it around. So, and there are different ways that you can turn that sentence around. There are different ways, like maybe I'm the one that's self-absorbed, or maybe I haven't been self-absorbed enough. So there are a lot of different ways, and she asks us to look at a few different ways that can be true. So there are probably at least 3 different ways that it could be true, each one of those turnarounds. So we can post that as well, because her work has been helpful to so many. And during the pandemic, she's also been doing some really wonderful connection groups. So yeah, happy to share that work. But before we go into our breakouts, I'd love to share just maybe a journaling practice and then a short meditation before we go in to our breakouts. So if you have a paper and pen, now might be a good time. Thanks, Karen, put it right in the chat for us. So if you have a paper and pen, now's the time, and you can just begin to jot down your thoughts that may have already been coming up. But what you could do, we're going to skip a few of the Byron Katie steps because you can download that worksheet and definitely take it for yourself. And we'll stick with that inquiry of judgment that I did at the beginning. So what I'd like to invite you to do is use that, someone else, and just write down on your journal or your paper, where am I judging someone else? And it doesn't need to be the deepest, most important one. You can just pick one. And no one's going to see your paper, so it's just for you. And just, where am I judging someone else? And take a moment to just write one of those down. And then I'm going to ask, is there enough? Joe goes, is there enough room for 5? You do as many as you want, and you can take the time to work with them. That's 5 great learnings, right? So what I'd like to do is just jump to, what judgment might I actually be making about myself? So if mine was, she is self-absorbed, you could even just turn it around and just point those, if there were the 3 fingers that are pointing back at me, what am I saying there? Maybe it's that I am so self-absorbed, or I'm not self-absorbed enough, as I said. Maybe there's another one in there. And the next piece is, what part of me am I repressing or pushing away when I make that judgment? So for me, it's that I often don't prioritize myself. I prioritize a lot of other people before me. And what I realize when I'm, kind of annoyed with someone else being self-absorbed, that I'm not actually prioritizing myself, because I learned somewhere that prioritizing ourselves was bad. So and I pushed that part of myself away. I didn't like looking in the mirror. I didn't want to, learn to wear makeup and things like that. Which may not have been the worst thing in the world, but but what parts of myself have I maybe pushed aside as not useful or necessary? Yeah, so Julie asked for me to repeat it. And the question is, what part of me am I repressing or pushing away when I make that judgment? And Lisa just shared about her own. So she's saying that she's judging someone for not taking care of herself. And she's realizing that she needs to take better care of herself and give herself some me time, like coming here every week. And so there are places where we start to learn something. So the final question is, what might I have to learn from that judgment? So what might I have to learn from maybe the thing that I'm repressing or the judgment that I made to someone else? And then when you're ready, you can put the pen and paper aside. And we're just going to sit for a few moments. I'll do a little bit of a guided meditation for us. I find that sometimes I get so in my head about this, or anything like this, that I just need to release the thoughts completely. And that's what lets me release the judgment. So Jay June just asked for the Buddhist concept, which was shared, I think, by Lisa. No, by Ellen. Sorry, Ellen shared. The Buddhist concept is that the one that angers you or annoys you is actually your spirit guide that is sent to teach you something. So for just a moment, we can sit with that. And if you'd like to find a comfortable seat and get your feet on the ground, perhaps if you've started to kind of fidget with something, I started playing with a little hair tie, or if you are just kind of in your head, maybe we just do a squeezing and releasing, a relaxation practice. So what we can do is we're just going to squeeze the different parts of our body all up together, and then we're going to release. So I'll guide us through that. So first we'll start with the toes. So if you'd like to close your eyes and lower your gaze and just tune into the body, squeeze the toes, squeeze the feet, and you're going to squeeze everything and just hold it. So squeeze, squeeze, squeeze your whole leg, your calf muscle, your hamstring, your glutes, squeeze your core muscles, squeeze everything in your body, your shoulders, your fists into little balls, your shoulders, your elbows, your biceps, your back, your eyes, your mouth, your ears, if you can squeeze your ears, and the skin around the skull. Just squeeze it all. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Inhale, and then release. Release the head, release the eyes, release the nose, release the jaw. Just feel the jaw loosening. Maybe just moving your jaw slightly. Just inhale, exhale. And with every breath, just being here in this moment, releasing the shoulders, the arms, the hands, releasing the hips and the thigh muscles, the knees, the calves, and the toes. And then for a moment, soften the space around the heart. And just tune in for a moment to the feeling or sensation that comes up. Just being with all that judgment can bring up a lot of different feelings. Just noticing what's present for you now. And perhaps using the breath as a tool for relaxation and releasing what's not needed now. You can bring the breath on an inhale to one of the places that you may feel tension in the body. For me, it's the hips right now. Just inhale into that place and then exhale, release. Just do one more time, inhaling to the spaces where there are tension, and exhale, release. And if you did have a learning or an insight, it's okay if you didn't, but if you did have one that came up from the places where you may be finding judgment, perhaps for a moment, just repeating that to yourself. Perhaps it's a commitment to care for yourself. When you're ready, we can return back to our connection on the screen with each other. Just know that wherever we are in this place and time, that we have a connection to one another, even through this little Zoom screen, but also in the fact that each one of us can get a little judgy sometimes, and that that's okay. And we can come back to the practice, that it's always a practice, a continued learning, and a continued place where we can find that tension and then also a release. And there's beauty in it. Um, Wonderful. So what we'll do is move into, there's lots of little bits of conversation starting in the chat. So we'll turn to each other in our groups, and you'll get a chance to just meet one another, maybe say hello, your name, where you're coming from, and we'll give each other the gift of listening. We'll have about 20 minutes for being together. And the idea, I often say, is we don't know what the other person may have had for breakfast, let alone what all of their life history may have been, or who knows, their judgments that may have gone on, or any of it. So we're just going to turn to each other and share, and just really listen beyond the words, listen beyond the view that you might have or the judgments that you may have had for someone else coming in. Just being with this person, or these two or three people in front of you, and their highest possible selves. So enjoy your time together. Bring in a little note of compassion and acceptance to your conversations, and we'll see you back here in about 20 minutes.